All right, everyone, I've got 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started with our planning commission meeting. Let me go ahead and go through and make sure I've got everybody on the Zoom call. Commissioners, if you'd make sure that you have your video on, and if everyone could keep their microphone muted until it is time to have a discussion or a presentation, I'd appreciate it. All right, if I can get the commissioners to turn off their mics for just a minute, and make sure everybody's audio is working. So we'll go through a roll call first, and then we're out of order a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and do roll call and we'll jump into our prayer.
Carlisle.
Here.
Burr.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Young.
Here.
Prater.
Chuck, are you on? I will come back to it.
Mowdy.
Here.
Urban.
So you got 5,
Chuck's here.
6. 6 total?
Yes, sir.
All right, good.
Anybody
All
hear
right.
Chuck?
Yes, sir, we hear you, Chuck. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have your video on?
I do now, yes.
Okay, great. All right, guys, we'll go ahead and start off with our opening prayer. If you would bow with me for just a minute. Father God, thank you for this day and for this time to gather together as a community and a commission. Pray for our leaders in office, Lord. Pray for those that are making decisions. Pray that, Lord, that give them wisdom. Give us wisdom tonight as we make decisions about our community. Help us to look out for the best interest of our citizens and our great city. And we thank you and we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into, hang on, let me get out of YouTube land. All right, back in my PowerPoint presentation. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes. Chuck can.
All right, good deal. All right, guys, let's go ahead and we'll do our pledge. Where is the flag in here? All right, here's the flag, guys. We'll use that one as flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, guys. Already did our roll call, so we're ahead of the game. Let's go ahead and get acceptance of our meeting minutes from our July Planning Commission meeting. Has everyone reviewed the minutes? And if so, do I have any corrections or amendments? If I do not have any corrections or amendments, can I get approval of those?
Make a
Make
motion.
a motion.
Second.
A motion from Carlisle. Is that a second from Byrd?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Carlisle.
Yes.
Burr.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Prater.
Yes.
Mowdy.
Yes.
All right.
Check that setting so we can see if the sound can come out through the.
Oh, yes. All right, hang on, commissioners. We're going to do a little technical switch over here.
Click next to where it says mute up on the top left, can you click that drop down arrow? Hover on that mute menu on the top
Right
left.
there we go.
Can we change that to HDMI on the, right there? There we go. Now we should be able to hear in here. Sorry, I was trying to get. audio.
Yes, thank you. All right, one of the commissioners give me a sound check. We're checking in here.
Yeah, this is Jordan.
Anyone?
Yeah, this is Jordan.
No, nothing.
Okay, I guess you'll have to change it back to your mic. I don't know why it's.
Yeah, we were trying to give you guys audio. I put audio in here in the multi-purpose room, but we'll keep it on my laptop so nobody can hear except me and Kim. All right, guys. All right, let's go ahead and get approval of the Board of Adjustment minutes from July as well. Do I have any corrections or revisions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion from Prater. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Carlisle. Roll call, please.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Bird,
yes,
Ward,
Yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Rowdy,
Yes.
All right, guys. So let's go ahead and get into the Board of Adjustment meeting. You guys have your agenda with you. We only have one item under old business. And Kim, if you wouldn't mind introducing it.
2409 Palisade Drive, variance to allow for an accessory building within 10 feet of the property line.
All right, the reason this one looks familiar is because it's familiar, and we talked about it last month. What we had was a procedure error. It was not properly advertised, so this one is back before us. As you guys recall, it was we talked about an accessory building that was built on the easement. It was denied with a 3-2 vote. So it's back before us here. And Kevin, is there anything else that we need to have in front of us?
No, same report. Basically, you're just dealing with a different.
Yeah, maybe not. All right, Kevin, I guess, is there any other discussion on this? I think the graphic has a little bit wrong, 24.
Can y'all hear me okay?
We can, yeah.
It's a little quieter on my end, but there's something going on with my headset. But no, it's the same report as we had as a continuation from July 28th. There's been no changes to the staff report or any of the commentary within it.
That doesn't help any, does it? Okay. All right. Do commissioners have any questions about this item?
Did anybody from the city actually meet with the owner about how to change it or anything?
Laura, do you know if anybody from the city's met with the landowner to discuss?
As far as him moving it or
Yes.
allowing him to leave it?
About any of it?
No, there's not been any further discussion on it.
Okay. Is Robert Ray on? Is the applicant either online or here? He's in the audience here with us, guys. Would you mind coming up to the microphone and just stating your name? You'll have to get real close to the microphone and talk into it as loud as you can so that the commissioners can hear it.
Robert Ray, 2409 Palisade Drive here in Cabot.
Can you guys hear?
Barely.
You're going to have to talk really loud, like outside voice. Like the kids are in trouble down the street.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Yeah, just like that.
I wrote up this, if you would allow me to read this.
Absolutely.
I am requesting this variance for my work shed. It is currently placed 5 feet from the back fence and 8 feet from the side fence. The shed was placed there in order for me to continue access to my property through my gate that is on the side yard fence. The fence on the side yard that I am talking about is not a straight line fence, as it starts at the corner of my house and runs diagonal along the street at a 45-degree until it hits the back of my property line. Because this fence runs at a diagonal, if I move the shed to be in compliance with the ordinance, it would end up being 18 feet from the back fence and 8 foot from the side fence. That would have the shed sitting exactly in the middle of the side yard where the gate opening is. I'm asking for this variance because it sits on the utility easement as mentioned in Article 5, subdivisions, section 5.4.3. An easement must be maintained or required for city utilities, poles, wires, and conduits, storm sewers, and gas lines. So in reference to that easement, I notified Arkansas 811 and opened a ticket, and the ticket number is 2007-31-1007. There were no utilities found in the easement where my shed is located. And I have a picture here to show you. The only two utilities that were found on my start yard, which is on the north side, was the fiber optic cable from CenturyLink and the main water from the city of Cabot. I have a picture to show that. The easement that I am referencing in my backyard runs north and south. I have a picture to show that. And the two utilities that I referenced that I found are running east and west, approximately 5 feet from the side of the street, nowhere near where the shed is located. And finally, I am asking for this variance in accordance with Article 5, Section 4.12.3, subsection B, variances. A literal enforcement of the provisions of this zoning code would result in an unnecessary hardship to myself and my family. According to the shed company, it would cost $975 to have that shed moved, and an additional $500 to have a contractor come out and move all of the bricks, dig up the bushes and trees, and relocate the gate in order to have my shed in compliance. Because I am a disabled vet and have just gained custody of my 11 and 13-year-old grandkids, it would create a huge financial hardship on me to move this shed. Therefore, special conditions do exist because I have financial hardship, and the fact that my fence runs at a 45-degree angle from the front of the house to the back property. Therefore, making it impossible for the shed to be 10 foot from the back easement and 8 from the side without causing me to lose reasonable use of my land and the building itself.
Commissioners, could you hear that? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Ticket from Dick.
And Mr. Ray, I've got your video that you gave Kimberly as well.
And then when they marked the ground where there was no utilities found. And then I have a picture. The water and the CenturyLink is running this way. The street running parallel to it, that's the shed. And these white lines are running north and south, where that's the easement runs up through there. So there's nothing near, anywhere near the city.
So Mr. Ray's shown me pictures of markings that the 811 marked on his yard, showing where the utilities are, and they're not in conflict with the shed. The video that you're looking at was submitted to Kim. It shows where the shed is recommended to be shifted or moved to. I think it looks like it's the yellow markings.
Actually, where my truck is sitting, straight back from there is where the shed would be if I had to move it, be in compliance with the back and the side. Because we're not just looking at a 90-degree fence. The further I move it forward, the further I move it from the back fence, the closer it gets to the side.
Right.
So I've got to keep moving it over and over and over, and I've got 18 feet behind it.
Yeah, Mr. Ray is saying that the more he shifts away from that easement, the closer it gets to the side fence, since he's in a triangular shaped parcel. All right, let me shift back to the PowerPoint. All right. So thank you, Mr. Ray. Is there anybody else here to speak against this item? Mr. Ray, is there any of your neighbors have had any objections to the shed?
My neighbor volunteered to come with me, but I said, yeah, they have to lose this. I think it was just the guy driving around.
So Mr. Ray said that he even had one of his neighbors offer to come along to speak for him. All right, does any of the commissioners have any questions of Mr. Ray or of Kevin or Laura?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I see, we issue a variance here. We're creating a precedent here, we got to allow the whole neighborhood to push their sheds up against their fences and I don't know. We make these rules to be followed. And it's pretty specific right there. It says drainage and utility easements may not be built upon. And even if we issued another foot to get him off the easement, I mean, you still got to move it, but it's pretty definite there what the rules say.
That is correct, Commissioner. I tell you the things that I see, the Board of Adjustment does have the power and authority to appeal these or to grant these variances. We do want new construction and buildings to be, additions or accessory buildings to be built in the appropriate location. I think if, yes, setting a precedence is one thing, but the purpose and intent of the Board of Adjustment is to, protect neighbors, neighborhoods, but also, look out for citizens and take each case by case. I don't feel like if we grant this one, we'll just have a flood of other ones that will be allowed. I think each one we have to look at case by case. I think since this one does not have any utilities under that easement, does not have any issues with the neighbors adjacent to it. If you had an outcry of the neighbors, I think that'd be something we'd want to take in a lot stronger consideration to be an advocate for those that are around this property. But I think I would be inclined to grant the variance, but I'm gonna let you guys vote. I got a full quorum. You don't need my vote, but I'll let you guys discuss.
Hey, Chad, I wasn't here last time, but am I okay to vote on this or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Are there any, what made them pick? I looked on one of these pictures, kind of overhead shot kind of it, and it showed a lot of accessory buildings in this neighborhood in backyards. What made the city pick this one to go? Was this the only one that they found in the subdivision that was like this, or is it because it was newer, or how did that come about? Because there's a lot of them, and I would be shocked if all of them are within the bounds of where they're supposed to be.
Laura, I'll let you feel that if you.
Yeah, this one came about when code enforcement and our building inspector were out in the neighborhood and noticed that it was a new building that had been put there. And then they looked to see if a permit was even pulled. A permit was not pulled on this building. And that's what has spawned all this to come about. We left a notice for Mr. Ray on his door to contact us, and he applied for the building permit, and we let him know that the accessory building is too close to the rear property line. So as much as I do feel for Mr. Ray, this could have all been avoided if a permit would have gotten obtained in the beginning.
And for the record, if I may, just to keep everybody within the regulations about how you all proceed with your decision making, and that you're not supposed to be basing any decisions based on monetary, financial, or pecuniary issues. And I know the applicant has, cited some financial hardships, but those are not technically hardships that this board can consider when making their deliberations. So whatever decision you all make, I would recommend that you state for the record your rationale for doing so.
Absolutely. Agree with that, Kevin. Any other questions from the commissioners? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I motion to approve it,
Got a motion to approve from the board.
and I need to say why.
Do I have a
He
second?
says,
Do I have a second?
A second.
Is that Mowdy?
Yes.
All right. Can I have a roll call vote?
Carlisle,
No.
Bird,
Bird, no.
Ward,
yes.
Prater,
No,
Mounty,
Yes.
So we had 6. We need, that's a 3-2. No, again. You don't need my vote, right? All right, it's 3-2. Motion is denied. The request is denied. So, Mr. Ray, the variance request has been denied. All right, guys, we're going to go on through the agenda here. We're going to adjourn the Board of Adjustment. And then we'll go ahead and get back into our planning commission meeting on the agenda here. The agenda is going to open let's open our public hearing. It's 7:24. We have about 7 items on the Unified Development Code, and we're going to have to go through each one of them. Kevin's going to give us an overview of each of the individual codes, and we're going to have to vote on each and every one of them. So Kevin, if you can give us the highlights. You guys have a copy of it in your packets.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Everybody
Yes.
online can hear you. Yes.
All right. So the first item, and Laura was responsible for putting the documentation together. So you basically have, for each item, you have a duplicate. You have the original existing code for that item, and then you have a red line version that shows you what's changed. So basically so you can see what the change actually entails relative to the existing. So the first item has to do with section 491 for special provisions accessory buildings. Specifically, you have sub item B, which deals with accessory building limitations. There's an item 3 that's been added. There isn't an item 3 currently, but we are adding that because, and a lot of these will carry a lot of the same theme, members, because Mr. Gunderman with Public Works and Streets has requested that these revisions be made relative to drainage easements and utility easements, because the city does run into some issues with construction of fences and all sorts of improvements that go on out there. So we wove some language into various sections of the UDC, but a lot of them have this common theme, which deals with drainage and or utility easements. So the first one has to do with accessory building limitations. And we're just simply adding a sub item 3, accessory buildings shall not be installed or constructed within any utility or drainage easements located on the property. And that language is not there under accessory building limitations. So that's the first item.
All right. So Laura, I think we just need to go line by line, just get one of these approved as we encounter them. So accessory building, do I have a motion to approve the accessory building language that Kevin's added to the UDC?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
A motion from Prater and a second from Carlisle. Roll call.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Rowdy,
Yes.
All right, that is adopted. Number 2, fences.
Yes, sir. So this deals with section 497, special provisions, fences. You can see in your red line version for the revised code, section 497, sub item B has had some language added. Right now, the way it reads and the way it's going to read is commercial and or industrial fences or walls. That wasn't called out in that way before, and now it is. And so the way it used to read is for any commercial or industrial use, a fence not exceeding 8 is all it read. But now we've added in commercial or industrial use, a fence, comma, or walls used as fences not exceeding 8. And we just put the number 8 in there. So the first provision is really making sure we emphasize that, for commercial or industrial fences / walls, and that we address walls, because right now there isn't any specificity in the regulations that deals with the height limitations for walls. So that's why that first item's in there. And then there's some language at the end of that sub item B, or impede the function of any drainage or utility easement as defined herein. C simply adds utility easement language, and D adds drainage easement language. And again, all of this is in regards to special provisions for fences. So you have an item number 2 that has several modifications to sub item B, and then an entirely new sub item C and sub item D.
Okay, Mr. Commissioners, do I have any questions about the fences section? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the language to be adopted in the UDC.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Byrd, and second from Mowdy. A roll call, please.
Carlon,
Yes.
Byrd,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Raider,
Yes.
Rowdy,
Yes.
All right, great. That one's adopted. Number 3, camper trailer parking.
So your section, your paperwork should read third item, section 4914, special provisions. This one's dealing with storage and parking of trailers and commercial vehicles. You'll recall a couple cycles ago, there was the review of the trailer and driveways, and there was an issue with durability of parking surfaces. So there's been an item added, an entirely new item under 4914 sub item B. That is a brand new item. If you'd like to read it, you may. I will not read directly from it, but this deals with either camping, hauling, travel, or other type of trailers shall not be parked, stored, or caused to be parked upon or across any public street, public right-of-way, public alley, or in the front yard of any single-family dwelling structure, duplex, two-family structure, or any portion of an adjacent or contiguous undeveloped property relative to the single family and all the different structure types. That's the first sentence. So again, I'm going to refrain from reading the rest of it, but I think this is intended to address some of the issues with perhaps a lack of clarity before with regard to camping trailers, hauling trailers, travel trailers, and all those sorts of trailers under special provisions.
So Kevin, this isn't going to prevent Cousin Eddie from coming over and pulling up in my front yard and parking for a couple days, but.
Well, it says these pavement requirements shall not apply if the said trailers are parked or stored behind the front. And a camping trailer, let's see here. I don't think there's a time component. So where there isn't the specificity in the regs, I would say Uncle Eddie is probably safe from parking on a temporary basis.
Okay.
I'm glad he's not.
But it can be occupied.
No, it cannot.
So, yeah.
If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the language for the camper trailer parking provisions to the UDC.
I'll make a motion.
Motion
Second.
second from Ward. Roll call.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Yes.
It said Ward, I say yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Mounty,
Great, that's adopted. Number 4, landscaping is miscellaneous provision for plantings and drainage easements.
Right, again, carrying on with the same theme of drainage and utility and drain and those sorts of easements. We found a section under 41517 in the landscape miscellaneous provisions. Under the mandatory requirements, that's letter J, there's a series of numbered items. So you have 1, 2, 3, carrying all the way down 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make sure I get it right. Item 9, trees planted should not interfere with overhead utilities, comma, added language, drainage easements. That was not called out before. And then an or right of ways, just, to let it read a little bit more correctly. That was it. Just making sure that any place where a drainage easement could be woven into a section of the UDC, we just made sure it went.
Commissioners, have any questions about the landscape provision and the drainage easement? If not, entertain a motion to approve that language.
Motion.
Second. A second from anyone?
Second.
Second from Carlisle. Roll call.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Mounty,
Mounty.
Yes.
All right. Great. Number 5, drainage easements.
Yes, sir. So similarly, we're dealing with design standards for easements. This is under section 543. Right now, it reads sub-items A and B deal with easements in general. B deals with easements shall have a minimum width of 5 feet on either side of both the rear and the side lot lines. But then drainage easements, as defined herein as a new item, shall have a minimum width of 10 feet on either side of both the rear and side lot lines with a total width not less than 20. And this is important because you want to make sure that, when you go to plat and when we have this specified, even if there aren't utilities being placed in there at the time of platting, you just want to make sure that those parameters are in there. And prior to now, I mean, there really isn't a defined width, even though most of the time your drainage easements end up being close to the 10 to maybe 15, but a standard practice is 10 on either side or a minimum 20 feet in width.
Commissioners, any questions on that language? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve and adopt that into the development code.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Bird, second from Mounty. Roll call.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Mounty,
Yes.
All right, item number 6, storm drainage.
So similarly, and we haven't gotten to the next item, which will actually be the thing that defines these items, but we wanted to make sure that we wove drainage easement and not just an easement. So under the design standards for storm drainage, which is an existing titling, we just wanted to make sure we added the word drainage easement because it wasn't specific to drainage. Now it is, as defined herein, and we'll get to that item in a moment. And then toward the end of this section, in any case, be a minimum of 20 feet in width, making sure you're clear with some of the other things that we've already gone over tonight.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners? If not, I entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Motion to approve from Prater.
Second.
Second from Carlisle. Roll call.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Mounty,
Yes.
All right, that one's adopted. Final one is the definitions. Item number 7 here on my list.
fairly straightforward. The current definition for easement has a sentence at the end that says a person may build over a utility easement at his own risk. We struck that. We didn't feel that that was prudent based on what we're discussing tonight. And then we wanted to make sure that there was a complementary definition for drainage easement. And that reads a property interest granted to the public, a corporation of persons of the use of a strip of land for the purposes of providing adequate storm water drainage and access of maintenance thereof. So it's not necessarily that there is an actual drainage apparatus, but that you have access. So it's a simple definition, but it's something that is not specified currently.
Okay. Before we vote on this one, Roger, are there any comments from YouTube? Any questions from public? Anyone to talk about this item? Any of these items? All right. Commissioners, if any questions, or if not, let's go ahead and wrap this one up and vote on it.
I'll make the motion for approval.
I'll second.
Second from Ward, roll call, please.
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Howdy,
Yes.
All right, great. We got those adopted into the UDC. Thanks, guys, for that. All right, next item of business, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm so glad I got my audio working. Goodness gracious. All right, 7:39, close that. New business, Kim?
PBGH, Greystone Edition, final plat, Blue and Associates.
So Kevin, do you want to give us the staff report?
Forgive me, my field office here in Conway has a train coming through, so I'm hoping that you all can hear me okay.
Yep.
Okay, so our first item here under the new business is PBGH Greystone is the vanity name for this project addition. This is a final plat submitted by Blue and Associates. As you can see in your report, we're dealing with a proposed 3.318 acre lot, a commercial lot. Current zoning is C2. Their proposed uses are also commercial in nature. It lies at the northwest corner of Arkansas Highway 5 and Spring Valley Road. The current actual tax ID listed has 14.7 acres, give or take. And I try to get a little description about the southern 2/3 versus this northern piece. So you've got a couple of your stalwart commercial, Centennial Bank, and some strip commercial and a Sonic drive-through that are all part of this parent parcel. But this northern piece that has frontage along the south side of Spring Valley Road hasn't been developed, at least not yet. And their intention, and we'll look at that as the next item on the agenda tonight, will also deal with this lot. But right now, they're just going to final plat. They'd like to propose a 3.318 acre piece. You can see the site graphic and its relationship to Spring Valley Road, as well as State Highway 5. The Centennial Bank is due south of the subject lot. And there's also a final plat, I believe, that was distributed to you all in a much larger scale, maybe perhaps a little bit clearer than the one that I embedded inside your staff report. There aren't any major outstanding items. There were a few sort of partially addressed statements. The second one is really just the final plat is missing the following easements. We're dealing with a 15-foot utility easement on the northwest side. We had requested that your engineer on call review the stormwater easement requirements. For instance, there's an existing water line easement. Could that be used for this purpose, for access for the utility easement on this side? See comment with the site plan report. So a lot of that is related to the following project that we will be reviewing. So aside from that, and then there's item number 12 that indicates what the crosshatched area is on the final plat along that northern boundary. Is it a proposed right-of-way dedication? If so, please indicate. And so our note was that the northwest corner right-of-way dedication just needs to be dimensioned out. I believe they did that on the actual site plan, but that was one of the outstanding, not really unaddressed, but just sort of a point of discussion, if you will. Other than that, there is a somewhat outstanding comment from the water folks. The applicant states that they are unable to locate documents for an existing easements other than those on the site plan. Water was wanting to see what the existing easements were for water and sewer lines. And so Cabot Water would need to comment on that.
Okay. I don't have anybody here from water sewer, do I? No. All right, do I have the applicant here, Sabrina Ricks? Either online or here in the building? Anyone?
She should be there. This is Dan Bartlett, the architect.
Hey, Dan.
Hello.
Just wanted to give the applicant a chance to say a few things about the report here.
I think we've addressed most of it, like the comments were said, and any of the remaining ones, obviously, will get attended to on the plat. Most of those items were addressed on the site plan, the current one. I don't know if we sent that final your way yet or not. I just got a text from Sabrina. She's listening. For some reason, her volume or something's not working. So if you have a specific question for the surveyor / civil engineer, we can text back and forth or something.
Okay. Well, it seems pretty straightforward. Again, commissioners, this is just a final plat review. We'll look at the site plan in the next item, but barring a few minor easement clarifications and water and sewer clarifications, I think everything's pretty straightforward. If there's no other comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve the final plat.
Hey, Chad, I got a comment.
Yes.
Question. And it may be closer to the site plan when I ask this question, but it looks like it's tucked a lot closer to Highway 5 than the other buildings around it. But maybe that's just the visual of the drawing. And I know there's a real wide easement, I guess, for future of growing that highway, correct?
Yeah, there's a really large right of way along Highway 5.
But I assume it's outside of that easement, right? It's tucked outside, even though the visual looks like it's in that curve.
Yeah, we'll look at that on the site plan on the next next item.
All right, go ahead.
Is everybody okay with the boundaries and everything appears to be in order, and other than some easement clarifications? But if no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
A motion from Prater. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Mowdy? Yep, gotcha. All right, final plat is approved.
If I may interrupt, that motion is to approve with contingencies, correct?
Yes.
With the contingencies of clarifications on the easements and water and sewer approvals. All right, rolling into the next item, Kim.
Number 22417, site plan, Blue and Associates.
Kevin, if you want to just keep on going on this one.
Yes, sir. Same property, same zoning, same parcel ID. So I don't need to do much with the description of the property. Right now it is undeveloped, mainly grass. Has access to all of its public utilities, but if you look on the site graphic in your report, you'll see that there is a clip out, if you will, of the site plan relative to aerial imagery, the zoning boundaries, some of the adjacent development. You can see that the building footprint is more or less how highlighted in a cyan color. You can also see how wide the right-of-way for Arkansas Highway 5 is. It does meet all the public works standards and master street plan standards for main ingress and egress, and having it be recessed far enough away from the entry for Highway 5. Right now, it is going to be proposed on public water and public sewer, easements and documentation notwithstanding. I don't think there were too many issues on this report. There was one, if you look in the back of your report on that first listing, item number 12, there was a proposed utility and drainage easement. Basically, they shall not be less than 12 inches in width, and that the easements must encompass all utilities. And so the comment we had was the 15-foot utility easement along the north property line needs to take in or encompass the existing sewer line. And so that needs to be widened. So that was basically the biggest major comment, is that utility easement on the north property line just needs to be widened out so that it encompasses that existing sewer line. The rest of these that are highlighted in yellow are just for discussion. Number 13 was interesting in that we were dealing with the front building. The front of this building actually architecturally faces east. It faces toward Highway 5, even though the main entry is on the north side of the parcel from that right of way. But from an architectural standpoint, you just want to make sure that your building orientation on the plans is consistent with front versus side, right? So that you have your setbacks marked appropriately. And then item number 20 dealt with dimensions of the pylon sign. Everything's fine in terms of its dimensions, height, and width, but the actual sign's height needs to be 35-foot max in the C2 zone, and so that we recommended that they actually state that. On your second page of comments for this, number 26 was just a point of discussion. It is addressed. Staff does not feel as though the design standards for commercial structures, new commercial structures, extends to fire apparatus lanes on adjacent property. And we say that because initially staff had thought that the rear portion of the building, the facade of the building that faces west, was within, quote, public view, right? You could potentially see it from the right of way to the north. Well, in the regs, it's pretty specific about what the intent is, and that it's, if it's viewed from the public. And so then I had a question, not necessarily a determination about, well, there is a fire apparatus lane. It just happens to be on the adjacent property. So, we deal with fire apparatus lane, but the staff did not feel like the intent of the regulations was so stringent, where the architectural standards were intended to shield your view from an adjacent property's fire apparatus lane. So that was our judgment call, and we felt that the item was addressed.
So that's the dashed little access easement from the west side that comes in off that common drive.
Right. So if you're turning off of the roadway and you're heading, I guess, into the site from the north to south, and along that, if you're looking at it in your view now, it's the left side, that dark gray, that pavement apron actually goes down to the facade of that building. Well, we're just dealing with architectural standards. So we were thinking, if you're facing a fire apparatus lane, you're technically supposed to treat it with architectural materials like the front and like the north or the side. They don't do it for the back or the west facing. And the reason they don't is because their argument is it doesn't face anything that is used by the public. And so staff agrees with that. Our question as staff was, well, there's an adjacent property that has a fire apparatus lane. That property, you can see a little bit of it. It's zoned C2 off to the left side of the page. But that's a fire apparatus lane, but it's on another parcel. So staff didn't think that the intent of the regulations was so stringent where it extended these architectural standards for fire apparatus lanes on adjacent property. We didn't feel like it was so stringent where it extended that far. And so that was the discussion that we had had.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Dan Bartlett, you're on this one here. Can you give us a little clarification on the orientation of the building? Obviously, the entry faces north. What's to happen to the east side where it faces Highway 5? Is that going to be glass or just?
On the east side would be a typical Dollar General type building, except it's going to meet the architectural standards for Cabot. It has brick and a ephes or a drive-it type finish above. So it's got mostly brick and drive-it on the front with about a 20-foot wide glass sliding door. And then on the north side, all of that surface is ephes or drive-it and brick. And then there's a percentage of it that is allowed to be a metal siding with appropriate fastening for the architectural standards. And then the other two sides would be the typical metal siding, the east and the south side. I meant the west and the south side, excuse me.
Did you submit elevations with the packet as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, do you guys have any questions?
Looks pretty good.
So the south side is going to have landscape against it. I guess that's going to be metal on the south side facing the bank.
Yes, that will have metal.
Will it have landscape covering it, or?
Just the required landscaping by the city between there and the detention. Well, there's a detention area, so obviously we don't want to put landscaping in it, but basically whatever's required on the back side of a building is what the developer will plant.
There's not any landscaping requirements to be on that side.
I didn't think so. I didn't want to stick my foot in my mouth too far.
Personally, I don't like that because they come out that exit all the time, and you got the nice bank, that's supposed to be $1 million bank. Then you'll see that metal building sitting beside it. But that's just a personal opinion. I don't guess that has anything to do with what we have going on here, right?
Yeah, Mitch, I think there's probably some tightening up on landscape regulations that we probably should look at. I mean, most cities have a building landscape requirement where it's anywhere around the building, there's existing, or there's supposed to be landscaping on all public, sides. It's maybe something we need to look at and just see if there's any improvement on that.
Well, and honestly, and I'm look, I go to Dollar. I'm excited about the Dollar General being there, so I want to make this happen. It's close to me, but I'm just thinking 20 years from now, what happens? We see these Dollar Generals, a lot of them all around town are empty. I own one, and it's a metal building, and that just sometimes they end up looking rough over the years. Brick is really nice.
Yeah, so we have a UDC that requires a certain percentage of brick, and Dan, you're saying that we've met that standard, so.
Yes, you met the standard on the north and the east side.
Well, I guess I want to question that also. Is that, is that going to be visible from the bank and from the road as much as it is from, what would it be, the east side and north side? Are they going to clear all those trees and that'll be visible?
Obviously, we'll clear a few trees as needed. It's more expense because anytime we bare earth, typically the developer will put back sod, and that's 90% of the project. Sometimes we'll seed in where there's a large area, but typically we're going to disturb where the detention is, and we're going to disturb obviously outside that fire lane. And we'll put sod in those areas. And if whatever trees are there, we will potentially leave accordingly. And on sheet C2-1 of our drawings, which you probably don't have all of them in front of you there, commissioners, but it shows the landscaping. So I'd guess about 15 feet outside that detention area. There you go, on the south side of that detention area. Whoever's playing with the arrow there. South of that, there'll be new sod there. As far as the trees, whatever's there, they'll probably leave because we don't intend to touch it.
So the arrow right here, Dan, if you can follow my cursor, that's the shape of the detention pond.
Yes, sir, that's it. So everything south of that and kind of east, west will be disturbed 15 feet plus or minus. And we'll put sod back there.
Okay, again, but I'd like to question that side of the building. Are we just going to see metal there that's visible from the bank side and Highway 5?
Well, my debate is you're going to see four sides of a building no matter where you're at, almost. Like that one north of us there. You're driving down Spring Street headed east, you're going to see the back side of that building. There's going to be trash dumpsters there, empty boxes, and air conditioning units all up and down that drive. I don't remember seeing the backside of that building when I was at the site, but typically, you know, in a strip center, that's what you see. So, you know, my debate is the two sides toward the two main streets are the two you need to do your architectural requirements on. The other two sides are basically away from the street. Yes, you probably can see them, but that's going to be true of any building in your city almost, you know, as a general statement. And unless you require architectural requirements on all four sides, I don't know how you're going to prevent that from happening.
Well, I still question it. I think we ought to at least do three sides on it. That's appeasing or, you know, pleasing to sight there, and meet our standards. We're trying not to get buildings that are just metal looking buildings.
A compromise might be, and I haven't talked to the developer, but we've used this in the past, instead of the typical metal building panel that's an R panel, if you know what that is, kind of a rib looking thing, we could do a more of a flat surface panel. It's called concealed fasteners. You don't see the screws and you don't see the ribs. It's kind of a smooth metal panel then.
It is a nicer looking metal panel.
Yes.
Our UDC code restricts the percentage of metal on all facades, especially the ones that are exposed to the highways and vision. And we ran into this once before where they changed the metal, but that doesn't change the fact that if you put metal on two sides, then it doesn't meet our architectural code. Only two sides do.
Yeah, all four sides are required, aren't they, Liz?
Yes. Not more than 30% metal.
Well,
No, that is incorrect. In the
That's
UDC,
incorrect.
it states that the building facade has to meet the requirements if they are accessed by a fire apparatus or have public access. So the south side and the west side of the building do not have to meet that 30%. Because they do not have, especially the south side does not have a fire apparatus access as well as public access. The west side of the building is a loading zone only. It is not a public access or fire apparatus lane.
Ultimately, Highway 5.
I'm talking about go ahead, Dan.
No, it was Matt. It was Matt. I'm kind of agree with what Mitch said. You're coming up Highway 5, you're leaving Greystone. There's going to be way more people that are going to see the south side of that building than that will ever see the north side of that building.
Ultimately, I think that the bank is fully brick. The place behind it is brick. I'm not sure about the building on the north at the side of it is brick, but it's a smaller side. This is going to be a lot of metal on the back side you're seeing. Again, I'm a DG, I'm a fan. I think I'll pay for that brick on the back. My family will. So, but as far as just the looks, to me, it'd be nice if it was consistent with the other building. And I could be wrong. Maybe the bank's metal on the side and I've never noticed, but it'd be nice if it's consistent.
Yeah, it's a brick all the way around. So Dan, too, is that roof, it'd be parapet on 3 sides, and they typically slope back to a downspout and a gutter, don't they, at the back?
That's correct.
And that's the south side, is the gutter and downspout and metal side, right?
So we would have 2 sides with the parapet on it, the east and the north side, and our plans do not show a parapet on the west side.
Or the south side.
Or the south side.
Mr. Chair, did you get the screen clip that I sent you with the architecturals?
Mm-mm.
You send that as a chat, or?
I sent it as a chat. You may want to open that. I'm not sure if you see a chat from me.
Oh, yes.
That's a clip from their elevations. If you want. I think the issue that we were bringing up in the staff report in the beginning was sort of the discussion from the staff's end, in that, it's pretty clear which facades of the 2 buildings definitely are visible from a public way or public street or fire apparatus lane. That is Highway 5 and the right of way to the north. Then it's questioned about, depending on your limits of disturbance, right? After you do your grading and your erosion control and your site prep, how much of the west facing facade and how much of the south facing facade will be viewable, quote, from the public. The UDC doesn't say view from the public. It makes it very clear about what it means, and it's using vehicle access lanes as the tiebreaker, basically. So you could construe Highway 5 as a vehicle access lane, because that after they clear, depending on how much they clear beyond the detention, maybe the limit of disturbance stops at the south end of that detention pond. They don't show a definitive limit of disturbance. They just show the stormwater and the grading and erosion control plan. So you don't know specifically from the plans submitted right now how much of that facade is going to be visible and at what point along Highway 5 it would be.
Can everyone see the screen I'm sharing?
So the image on the top left, that's the front of the building which faces Highway 5. The image on the top right is the metal facade that is currently facing west. That is the, quote, rear of the building. That is the service area where the dumpsters are. The image at the bottom of this, that's the facade that faces the county right of way to the north, or the city right of way, city maintenance right of way to the north. So the bottom of the screen is your north facing from that street, and then your Dollar General main entry faces Highway 5. There isn't a facade diagram given for the south facing, facing the Centennial Bank.
But it would look like this rear elevation right here.
Presumably, I will let the applicant qualify.
Dan, it would look like this, the rear elevation with the metal panel, right?
There, I finally got to unmute. Yes, it would be very similar to that. We submitted that. I don't know, maybe it got cropped off in I understand you can't put so much information on the screen, but yes, it would look similar to the upper right side of the drawing, the clip that we see there.
I'll send another one.
Dan, would the applicant be opposed to providing a band of brick of that block on that side?
I couldn't answer that. They obviously try to keep the expense down so that pass the savings on to everybody. But we could see what they say.
And I'm drawing it on the rear elevation. Obviously, we're talking about the south elevation.
Yes. And then you've also been talking about the south elevation too. So, you know, that's a lot of brick.
Well, not the west elevation, but we're talking about it going on the south elevation, not the west elevation.
Mr. Chair, I just sent you a clip for that, the left elevation, if you will, which faces south. It's captured too.
Got it. There you go, Mitch. There.
I mean, it's a heavy stand of woods there in that swale between the Centennial Bank and this site. So as far as a grade goes, it's very conducive for adequate stormwater management. The issue is going to be how much of that vegetation ultimately is cleared. And
Yeah, most of that will be for that detention pond.
the Centennial Bank is cladded with brick and stone on all four facades. I do not know if that was a city negotiated, but in the Centennial Bank's case, it definitely would have needed to do so on the facade that faces Highway 5. And that is also an interior street, so it's technically going to be visible from, I think it's, what is that, lake? Not necessarily meaning you have to make any decisions on surrounding projects, but the question will be for interpretation about what is visible from a public way or a street or a fire apparatus lane, because that's what the UDC requires now.
Right. All right, commissioners, let's go ahead and.
I've got another point.
All right, Dan.
The detention area, I was looking at the grading plan. We could make it a little less, a more narrow north and south and wider east and west. On the west side, pull that area further to the west and then make the south a little more narrow and leave a few more trees. You know, we can do that too as another compromise. Because once you get your dozer out to push dirt, we're pushing yards of dirt. It probably doesn't make that much difference there.
I think the more you can screen that backside, the better.
That's what I was thinking. So if we make that a little narrower and wider, you know, east to west longer and north to south narrow, we'll save a few more trees.
Okay. Commissioners, I've got here that basically there's a few more additional easement clarifications, staff comments, dimensions for signs. That's all wrapped up in the report to base the approval on some contingencies. I have another chat. Kevin's another clarification.
No, I'll stop. This will be the last clip I send you. This is the clip from the grading and drainage plan that they submitted.
Yes, you're cutting down 4 feet below the building pad adjacent to the backside of the building. I think any modification where you can leave that grove of trees on the south side, make sure that you meet your requirements for your storm drainage detention would save Dollar General money.
Yes.
enhance that back facade. So
Right.
I think we can come to a compromise if, Dan, you can help us achieve that.
I think we can make it, I don't know if we can make it any deeper because we got to get the water out of the detention area, obviously to the southeast, but I think we can make it narrower and longer for sure.
Okay. All right.
Chad, is there any way we can move it with the contingencies on the drainage and easements and all that, as well as best efforts on the aesthetics, whether that be making it more narrow or a potential wainscoting of some sort, maybe?
I think you can put those stipulations on. Yeah.
I'd like to move it that way if I could.
All right. So Mr. Carlisle, is that a motion to approve based on the staff report for easements, clarifications, and modify the drainage area to preserve as many trees at the back as possible for screening of the south facade?
Yes, sir. Just best efforts on the aesthetics by staff.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Second from
Go ahead,
Ward.
Ward.
Three-
Roll call.
yeah.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Mounty,
Yes.
All right. Site plan is approved with those stipulations. I'm going to stop sharing that screen. I'm going to go back over to my PowerPoint. All right, next item on the agenda.
Walmart and 2 Walmart commercial subdivision, replat, Horizon Land Survey.
Kevin, staff report, please. Kevin, you're on. You're live.
You must not have paid a Zoom bill.
Kevin expired on his report.
Chad,
Laura?
I'll jump in here if you want me to.
Please.
Yeah, this is an out parcel. This is a final plat for an out parcel at our existing Walmart location. It is I'm sorry?
Neighborhood market, to be specific,
No.
right?
No, this is our super center.
Oh, super center. Okay.
Yes, this is our super center. So this is just a small out parcel located in the northeast corner of the existing parking lot. As you can see in the staff report, everything has been addressed. The applicant is asking for the front setback to be reduced from a 40-foot to down to a 25-foot front building line due to the proposed site development that they have already worked out with Walmart, the developer that is coming to develop this site. The Planning Commission does have the authority to reduce a C3 front yard setback if they so desire to, as long as it is conducive with the surrounding buildings and it does not lessen what the outcome would be. If you got any questions, I can answer any. In the staff report, you will see a submitted proposed sketch for what the site will look like when it is developed. But this is strictly for a plat of just cutting out this out parcel. But they had to submit this sketch in order for the commissioners to see why they needed a reduced front setback.
Okay. I see Kevin's back on. Kevin, I think Laura covered it for you. Also, we've got either Danny Burns or Travis Fisher with us as applicant, either online or here.
Yes, I'm Danny Burns. I'm here.
Hey, Danny. Anything you want to add to the presentation here?
No, as far as I'm the one working on the plat submittal and everything, and I've got that, pretty much I tried to address all the comments that y'all had sent me, and I think I've got them all covered. But I'm open if y'all got any more that you need me to take care of. I'll definitely take a look at them. I believe Michael Boggs is online in place of Travis Fisher for Trayline Engineering, who are the ones that are doing the site development plans on the site.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, y'all have any questions for applicant or Laura or Kevin? Seems pretty straightforward, just a slight reduction is well within our jurisdiction to approve. If there are not any comments or questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Mowdy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Byrd. Roll call, please.
Harlow,
Yes.
Bird,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Howdy,
Yes.
All right, replat is approved. We'll go on to item D. Kim?
more commercial, lots A and B, final plat, Lemons Engineering.
All right, Kevin?
Yes, sir. So my apologies for whatever reason, my PC decides it wants to do a Windows update right now. So I do not have the staff reports in front of me. I was relying upon a lot of my electronic medium, but I do know this site fairly well at North Candlewood on the south side of 321. This is a proposed split of an existing commercial lot that was zoned a couple years ago from R1 to C2. The applicant right now would like to split the lot evenly, give or take, between a proposed lot A and B. There is some discussion in your staff report about North Candlewood Street and whether it was actually recorded or platted. I think there needs to be a little more research done before we get the official final approval. Perhaps that's a condition that the commission would like to place on this. The applicant doesn't know or doesn't believe that that was actually ever platted. But that the reason it's important is that we want to make sure that there's enough right-of-way dedication because it's showing up as a local street. And there is some right-of-way, so we want to make sure that the proper dedications are in place. Right now, the applicant isn't proposing to access 321 or any way to cut, up into the right-of-way for the state highway. All of their proposed access is coming from the north side of the lot, or both of those lots, through proposed ingress-egress easement, which you can see. Regarding that in your report, there was some commentary about making sure that there's a singular point of access off of 321 to into both of those proposed lots. Because what you don't want is to have multiple curb cuts and then circumventing some of the master street plan provisions for distances between driveways and street access. Apparently there's already been some negotiation about where the easement is and who's going to purchase it. So the applicant hasn't necessarily adjusted their ingress egress easement as shown on the plat. But we wanted to make sure that on the record that they know that the access for both of those lots should only come from that easement and not generate a second curb cut because of the master streets plan. So those were the major issues from your staff report.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. We've got Tim Lemons here. So Tim, if you would mind, speak very loud for the commissioners.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Loud as you can. There it is. Now you're live.
And in conclusion, I appreciate your affirmative vote on this. I'm sorry I had to do that since they couldn't hear me. Yeah, just kind of clarification on the access on 321. That has always been the intent of the Moores, who are the present owners of both lots, to have that one point of ingress and egress. There will not be a request for another ingress and egress on 321 for the lot to the left or to the west. Now, as far as Candlewood Drive, that is not a recorded subdivision. It was sold by meets and bounds. So therefore, we're kind of looking for direction as to what the city would like us to do. I do know that the property that is due west of the what is shown there on Candlewood, they do use that existing road for ingress and egress. I'm a little unsure whether we should do that as a right of way or just an ingress egress, because the only people using that are presently are the Moores who have the house that's on the west lot and the people across the street. So when the house is sold and someone develops that property, I'm sure their ingress and egress will be coming out of 321. So really not sure how to handle that easement. It is an existing easement, but it is not a recorded, it's not a recorded plat.
Yeah, Laura and Kevin, how do we want to handle that? A right-of-way dedication or an easement for that parcel?
If Lot A doesn't intend to access North Candlewood, then I'm almost inclined to, just to keep it as just an easement, maybe not necessarily an ingress egress easement if they don't intend to access it. If their intent is to access this parcel from Highway 321, then granting the ingress egress from North Candlewood, if we give it the ingress egress, then that leaves the option for them to access it from North Candlewood, which is, as Tim stated, is not a platted street. So if we don't, if we leave it as a utility easement and don't make it, you just leave the ingress egress for that property owner to the left. If it's always been that way, if both property owners own to the center line of Candlewood,
And Laura, you are correct. They don't do on to the center line of Candlewood.
so the property to the west can only access their property from North Candlewood, if I can see that correctly on the.
Yes, I believe that is the case.
Right in there.
Okay.
Just trying to get a little bearing, the lot to the left or to the west of lot A, which is the lot we're talking about, their only ingress and egress is on North Candlewood. There is a track that exists west of that track that comes out to Curve Station. So the only person that uses this is just that one lot. This is what happens when you annex in a piece of property that was never platted, but sold by meets and bounds.
So everything seems to be proper other than whether the North Candlewood is a easement dedication or a right-of-way dedication. So that's really the two issues at hand.
Yes.
Kevin, sorry, you're on mute.
Your master streets plan calls it as a local street. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's platted, but if your streets plan calls it as a local street, then, from a planning perspective, if there's an adjacent property that has a portion of a right of way within its plat boundaries, then that portion of it should certainly be dedicated as such during the planning process. So at least you can legitimize a portion of it. Because you won't get too many more opportunities to plat it, if that makes sense. You also note that the applicant is wanting to combine both the preliminary platting process and the final plat, because there wasn't a preliminary plat submitted for this project. They're coming in as a final, but staff made a point to articulate that they technically have to ask to combine the two. And a lot of this would probably have already been dealt with at the prelim and not necessarily at the final.
Got it.
If I could address that.
Okay.
They have a buyer for this property and it's something that's happened really quick. They didn't have the luxury of doing this over a 2 to 3 month period. So just kind of follow what we've done in the past when there's really no improvements to be made. We in the past been able to go directly to a final plat. And we could have submitted a preliminary final at the same time, but we're just trying to sever funds. What I would suggest, if this would be acceptable to the planning commission, would be to we can actually address this easement / right of way at a time that a site plan eventually comes up for lot A. If there's someone we could do that, that's the biggest decision that we need to go forward, is to be able to sell lot B. So the issue of the right of way on lot A, not sure how to word that. Maybe Kevin, Laura can help us, but we can address that right away at such time that this comes back for a site plan.
Laura, Kevin, looking to you.
I would just defer to the UDC, and that's just one of the things that the UDC requires for prelim. And since we're combining, at least the applicant's requesting it, technically the commission has to approve whether they're even allowed to combine the two. And so basically all I can tell you is that the UDC requires that these items be addressed during its prelim stages. But Laura, I will now defer to you.
I mean, I'm not sure how, if we keep this labeled as a 50-foot right of way and utility easement and then come back for whoever develops lot A, then they would in turn have to replat that lot. But if we grant them this right of way immediately right now, then they potentially could access North Candlewood and have an entrance off of 321 in conjunction with lot B.
They would have two legal forms of access, even
Correct.
if it's not platted. It's, it's de facto, even though it's never been platted, it's been used. So just by virtue of adverse possession laws alone, Lot A probably already enjoys access, whether it's been platted or not.
So I would be inclined to suspend the rules and allow them to submit a preliminary and final plat, and let's request that they provide a right-of-way dedication for Lot A with the current approved C2 zoning. And whatever needs to be modified in site plan can be modified in site plan.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mike Watson with Half and Associates. You could put a plat note that they couldn't have access off of North Candlewood onto Lot A if it's developed as something more than a residential property.
That's a good comment, Mr. Watson. Appreciate that.
Okay, and if we're going to grant that right of way, then that right of way dedication will have to be shown as a 25-foot right of way dedication on Lot A. And then that building line would have to come off of that right of way.
If I could make one suggestion while we're kicking ideas,
Yes, sir.
why don't we put on this, the 25 feet that is on lot A, why don't we label this as an ingress and egress easement for the use and benefit of Jerry and Cheryl Moore, which are the present owners. Then when this thing comes back at the site plan standpoint, then that decision can be made whether that road is going to be dedicated or not. But it would protect their egress and egress for their house, as it presently stands.
Don't tie it to use, tie it to ownership.
Yes, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I mean, if that would work for the city.
Acceptable to you, Laura and Kevin?
It's legal as long as it gets recorded properly.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Commissioners have any questions or want to make a motion contingent on this discussion here of basically don't make me re-summarize this whole thing.
You can make a motion for approval.
All right, motion for approval from Prater. Do you have a second?
I second.
Second from Ward. All right, roll call, please.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Prater,
Yes.
Howdy,
Yes.
All right, that preliminary and final plat is approved, and we will make that contingent on ownership and address that later. All right, next item, item E.
Heritage Meadows, lots 1 through 20 and 57 through 72, final plat, Lemons Engineering.
We have seen this project before, but we saw it at the preliminary platting stage for all 72 lots. And the preliminary plat was signed back in April of this year by Mr. Planning Commission Chair. But as you can see in this review, the final plat is really for what I'm not sure if the applicant regarded this as phase one, but staff certainly is treating it that way. So it's that western half, if you will, shown in yellow on your graphic relative to the entire site, which is in cyan. So that's just sort of giving you a refresher on what we're talking about. So today's final plat submittal is for lots 1 through 20, and then lots 57 through 72. So it's that eastern half, if you will, of Cimarron, or is it Cimarron or Cimarron? I think it's Cimarron Drive, which is coming off of the north side of Campground Road. So we've seen this site before. The entirety of the site is roughly 19 acres. It is pending, I believe it is pending annexation. I'm not sure if the annexation has occurred yet, but this would be an R1 zone property. It has gone through its preliminary platting. There are a few outstanding items in your staff report. The biggest ones really were about the rear lots, or the ones that are on the north side of the property. You can see that I've tried to my hand at an inset of proposed lots 18 and 19. So there's a proposed drainage, stormwater detention, lot easement. Now, the applicant had stated that the detention has been moved exclusively to lot 19, but the plans that were submitted show the detention easement across the rear of both lots 18 and 19. So that should get discussed tonight. And that, I believe the applicant wishes to dedicate lot 19, the apparent detention lot, to the city. So then the other discussion is, where's the detention for sure? Is it on just 19, or does it go across both? And would the city want to accept a detention lot? So that's the primary issue. There are a couple other comments in yellow. And if the commission would like to look at those and ask any questions of staff, we'd be happy to assist.
All right, thanks, Kevin. We got
Yes, sir.
Tim here to continue the conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kevin, you may have not been privy to this, but a couple of weeks ago, we changed the stormwater detention facility from the back of 810 to exclusively on lot 19. And we submitted that to Public Works, and they approved that. So the detention facility is solely on lot 19.
So
Looking through my files now, the actual PDF.
So the thing for the commission to approve and discuss tonight is to have a detention on lot 19, as well as dedication of that to the city to maintain versus some type of POA or homeowners association group maintaining that. Is that correct, Mr. Lemons? Is that correct?
I assume so. The decision on whether it's on 19 or not, that was made by staff a few weeks ago. So I guess it's ownership and maintenance of the detention area.
My PDF, Mr. Lemons, and I'm looking at a close-up of lots 18, 19, and 20. I show a 20-foot easement across the back of 18, 19, and 20. And then I have the center line, 12 feet on center for another easement between 18 and 19. So there isn't anything on the plat, at least not the one I have, that shows any of these lots as only being for stormwater detention. But you had mentioned that this was an agreed to discussion, I guess, with the city. Is that correct?
If you would look at general note number 7.
Lot 19 to be used by drainage, detention, utilities to be.
Okay, I see the note, but I guess it's not represented on the plat. It's not represented. Your note and the plat are not, at least it does not appear to be consistent. And if it is consistent, I just would like you to qualify that for me.
Okay, now.
The easement between 18 and 19 is a sewer easement. It has nothing to do with the detention. The 20-foot easement on the rear, that encompasses the sewer line as well. That's why you have those easements. The general note number 7.
Right, and I see that. So my version of the plat, if I just zoom in on the physical lot 19, it would show as a buildable lot. It doesn't show that it's detention at all. Your note may be accurate relative to what the city has asked and that they're okay with that. The plat doesn't indicate that 19 is unbuildable or that 19 is not a building lot. And yet this is supposed to be a final plat. So I would recommend that 19 be redone so that it is not indicating as a buildable lot. It does not look like it's a detention lot. That is all.
And I'm sorry, Kevin, I didn't realize that's what you wanted. I didn't get that review, but I can let big letters detention a lot across number 19. If you notice, it doesn't have a building line. That coupled with the general note, I can't imagine how somebody would try to get a building permit without building lines, but
right. If you're platting it, I think for clarity, I mean, at least in my eyes, I would prefer to see something that says, not buildable.
Okay.
You got it.
We got it. All right. So that's issue item number 1. Number 2 is, does this want to be maintained by the city? And I don't think there's any desire for the city to take on more, from what I'm hearing, take on maintenance of detention ponds. So Tim, is there another alternative for that to be maintained by a POA or a?
Of course, that's always possible. We could look at the formation of a POA, or we could actually incorporate the area of lot 19 to one of the neighboring lots and just let somebody have a much bigger yard with the agreement that they would mow it as if it was their yard. So we have other options. We'll get something worked out. And in the meantime, if we get this approved tonight, until that issue is worked out, however we do it, the owner of this development will be responsible from now till whenever for the maintenance of lot 19.
Okay.
But if the city's wanting to pick up some extra assets, and wants to own a detention pond, I'm sure that Mike would be glad to dedicate it.
A city-owned detention fishing pond in Heritage Meadows, right?
It don't have water in it when it rains, so I don't think we could do a whole lot of fishing.
Okay.
A lot of public access, Mr. Lemons.
Well, great amendment. All right. From what I'm hearing, I think, Mr. Lemons, I think that would be a good way to go, is try to either give adjacent property owners the additional land, let them mow it, maintain it. I just don't think, city take on little small pocket parks.
We can address that issue.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else to discuss, Kevin, on this one?
No, sir. All the other items are ancillary in nature, and I don't believe there's anything else outstanding. I do know that the phasing, there's the fire comment, basically just acknowledge that the applicant has noted that the fire comment about the timing of the phase and October 24th of this year being the deadline about needing to complete it or providing a fire apparatus turnaround. That's all.
Okay. All right. With those caveats, could I get a motion to approve the final plat for Heritage Meadows for this phase 1?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve from Mowdy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Prater. Roll call, please.
I don't have a microphone.
Byrd,
Yes.
Carlisle,
Yes.
Mowdy,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Prater.
Yes.
Like everybody? That all right? Okay, all right. That's final plat's approved. All right, now we're going to go into community input. Anybody from YouTube send any comments in, Roger? Anybody from the gallery, the public forum? Yeah, all right. We'll move on to my favorite section, to adjournment. Do I have a motion to approve from our planning commission meeting?
Motion.
Motion to approve from Carlo. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Good. We're adjourned. Thank you, guys. See you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.